always try to throw in some scripture. We're going to be talking, our scripture references are going to be on patience and faith. Wayne Dyer, we're going to be talking a whole lot about Wayne Dyer and going to a higher vibration. And so I'm excited about that as well. We're going to be talking about someone named Nick Vujicic. And so, you know, I like to have a hero story in there. So Nick Vujicic is going to be our hero story. And then I'm going to be talking about living in the presence to create our dream future. So yes, you are absolutely right. The title was The Best Is Yet to Come. And the subtitle was From Fear to Faith. So we talked a lot last year about fear. And so I'm very excited that we will be able to talk about that even more. So the best is yet to come, from fear to faith. So you heard me talk last week. I went to the dark place. And for those of you, by the way, there were a couple of people that reached out to me and that were concerned that I said that I went to a dark place. Thank you so much for your concern and for your love. I went to the dark place very intentionally. So because of the work and the talk that I was giving, I took myself back to that time and space where I was overwhelmed with feelings of not being enough and not being loved and not being cared for. You know, the extremely unhealthy patterns that I was in. And so I took myself back there so that I could do the writing that I needed to do, but be aware that I was able to say, okay, that's the past, it's behind me. And I was able to come back to where I am now, which is in complete joy and harmony and trusting 100% with every fiber of my being that I'm being taken care of and that I'm learning the lessons that I'm supposed to be learning. So thank you so incredibly much for those of you who reached out and were concerned. And I'll be very careful to say next time that I say that I went to a dark place that it was a long time ago and that I'm actually okay. So thank you so much for that. So you've heard me talk a whole lot about changing from the inside out. And I really believe that I am a completely different person than I was. Most of you who know me know that my idol is Louise Hay. She has been in my heart and in my mind and in my life for 30, oh my God, this is 20, so for over 30 years. And I've been listening to her literally every day for 30 years. She is a magnificent force. And what's so amazing to me is as I do all of my other research, a lot of the voices that I hear from other New Thought leaders all go back to Louise Hay. They want to say her stuff. Wayne Dyer, so a lot of them were actually friends, by the way. And so they all sort of bounced off each other. If you can think of like times in the Greenwich Village where they're all sitting around a coffee table talking, these people were friends. And so a lot of the thoughts that you'll hear from me may be from one person, but they were all a result of a whole lot of brilliant minds coming together. So changing from the inside out, Louise Hay, one of her strongest affirmations that I've been using all of these years says, only good can come from this experience. So no matter what you're going through, you have to constantly remind yourself that it may be trying, it may be difficult, it may be hard, you may be lonely, you may be feeling frightened, you may be feeling anxious, you may be feeling overwhelmed, but you need to always, always, always remember that only good can come from this experience. She talks a lot about, and I've talked about it with you also, the fact that loving yourself is the most powerful thing you can do. So we understand that God lives inside us, that there's not a single moment in time that God is not inside us. And so we understand that when we're loving ourselves, we're loving that God part of ourselves, the best part of ourselves. And so we're going to always remember that loving ourselves is bringing the truth energy, the truth of who we really are into being. So also want to remind you that everything that you think, that you speak goes out into the universe. That's a very, very big principle of Louise Hay's. She's really big on, I don't do it as much as I should have, but looking in the mirror and talking to yourself. And she says that when you speak out into the universe, it becomes real. So she has looking in the mirror every day and saying, I love you, I truly love you. And that's the beginning of all of this. And so, and then the other thing that we're going to be talking about today is that we don't have to fix the problems. We have to fix our thinking. And so Mimi talked about that a little bit in her perfect meditation. And I thank you again, Mimi. And so it's not the problem, it's the problem, it's the way we think about it. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that also. So Colossians 3:12 says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. The revealing word, which as you know is by Fillmore, says that patience is an attitude of mind characterized by poise, inner calmness, and quiet endurance. especially in the face of challenging conditions. Patience has as its foundation in faith. His foundation is in faith, and it is perfected in those who have an unwavering faith in God. So Romans 12:12 says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. So those of you who know me, a lot of you I've worked with individually, some of you I haven't, but those of you who know me know that I end a lot of my prayers with, although we have everything we need right here and right now, I absolutely affirm that the best is yet to come. And so while I love the song that I played for you by Danny, that best is yet to come is an absolutely predominant force in my life. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit as well. Sometimes it's an endurance contest. Sometimes we go through periods that are difficult and hard to make sense out of, and that are challenging to us. And sometimes it's an endurance contest to get through. Sometimes we have an illness that we might have to power through. Linda, I know you did a magnificent job of coming out the other side of your double pneumonia. Sometimes we have to go through some very, very difficult times when we have to hang on, and we have to know that the best is yet to come and that we will be able to get through it. And sometimes it is an endurance contest. I also want to remind you, as I said to someone that I love very much, that there are two sides to every coin. So we may have days that are filled with joy and gratitude and hope and love, but there are going to be days that we are not feeling that so much. And we need to not get thrown off of our course and remember that the reality is there are two sides to every coin. There are two sides to everything. There are going to be days that are great, and there are going to be days that hurt. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means it's part of your path. And again, if you go back to the Louise Hay, something good is going to come out of this experience. Every single experience that we have is so that we can learn the lessons we need to learn. So Proverbs 3:3 says, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. I love that. I love that. So yeah. Again, anybody wants any of these quotes, just reach out to me and I'll tell you what they are. By the way, hopefully this is being recorded, so I'll be able to get it up on the website so you can see it again. And those of you who came here late or weren't able to be here that I'll reach out to, thank you so much for being here now, and we will get it up on the website, and you'll be able to catch the first couple of minutes of it. Okay, so Fillmore says that patience is that phase of faith that has had its companion power of strength added to it. Strength is endurance because it knows why it is steadfast. He says it is self-control that springs from an inner consciousness of our oneness with God, who is the source of all good. So Matthew 17:20 says, truly I tell you, if you have faith small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible to you. So again, from the revealing word, faith is described as the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. And of course, the power to shape substance is God. So when you've got both your mind and God mind linked together, there's absolutely nothing that you can't do. It is a deep inner knowing that that which is sought is already ours for the taking. I have that up on my wall. If any of you guys ever, I'll take pictures because I have stuff all over my apartment on the walls. I make posters to remind myself of this stuff. So I have posters of that up on the wall. So, okay, we're going to talk about Wayne Dyer. So as I said, Wayne Dyer was a good friend of Louise Hay. They worked together. They influenced each other. And I've got many, many of his books. But what I'm going to be talking about today comes from the book, There is a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And he talks about the fact that absolutely everything in the universe is energy. So there is high, fast energy field, and there's a low, slow energy field. So slow frequencies appear more solid. And that's why we see problems bigger, because the lighter energy, the faster frequency of light and thought, it's faster, so you can't see it, it's not as dense, it's less visible. And the fastest frequency is called spirit. So we're going to be talking about that a lot. So in 2000, Wayne Dyer had a heart attack. He was in a hotel room alone by himself. And it was just unbelievable to everybody. First of all, he was this teacher of health. He was this magnificent human reminder of metaphysical truth. And he got a heart attack. And obviously human bodies break down. But he was also in really good health. So he ran like 12 miles a day. He ate really well. He has a wonderful family life. He is a very happily married. He loves his work. So you can't blame it on any of that. It's just that sometimes body organs break and you just have to get yourself back into alignment. So he says, I remembered that I could bring the energy of spirit right there to the hospital room. By doing so, I could turn this thing around and no longer wallow in the low energy of self-pity, injury, sadness, fear, or doubt. Now it was up to me. I am not this body. I am a spiritual being, eternal, always connected to God. He says a light came on in the room. I could feel the presence of a higher, faster, healing energy almost immediately. So he has a whole book about it, and I've put out the top seven that will help us all so that we can learn how to turn our anxiety and our fear and our focus on problems, how to turn that all around. So the number one is surrender, turn your problem over to God. And so you remember, you guys, when I've had, I don't know, probably several talks, I talked about my headaches, and I talked about that there came a time I finally said, all right, God, thy will be done. I give it to you, whatever, I get it, but if you want me to have a headache, I have a headache. And as soon as I turned it over to God, the headache went away. And it was a process of me doing this over and over and over and over and over. So the fact is, I get a headache maybe once a year now. And I'm able to pretty quickly say, all right, God, whatever, I get it. And then I look at my lifestyle and understand I probably need more sleep and more food. It boils down to something real simple. But surrender your problem to God. So he said, I saw love everywhere rather than fear. So he looked at all of the nurses, all of the doctors, all of the anesthesiologists, all of the people that were coming into his life, and he focused on all of the people that at that time were allowed to visit him in the hospital, and he focused on all of the love that was surrounding him rather than the fear that he had inside himself. He said, I reminded myself I am an infinite soul in a temporary body. So we can always tell ourselves that again. He said, I quieted my mind and I emptied all negativity. He said, I was grateful for all who brought the healing. And he knew inside of his heart that he was going to be healed. He absolutely stayed connected to God. He said, I absolutely know I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to stay connected. This is going to end. I am not my body. He said, he brings joy to those around me as a way of eradicating my self-indulgence. So we talk sometimes, self-indulgence is one of those heavy words, but it means that you're kind of ego, self-centered. That when you're thinking about yourself, so he could have been lying in the room saying, oh my God, I had a heart attack and I've got all these tubes and all these wires and everything. Instead of indulging in self-pity, he turned that around on how could he bring joy to other people. So he started walking with his pole around the hospital and saying hello to other people and asking how they were doing and shaking their hands and giving them hugs and stuff. And so he focused his energy on giving back rather than being self-centered. And a lot of our 12-step programs, we know that that's true too. The more you give back, the better you feel. But you also have to align yourself with a higher, faster energy field as opposed to the low energy field. And he says, all problems are illusions. Mimi, you said that perfectly in your meditation this morning. All problems are illusions. In our minds, we believe that we are separated from our source. And when we believe that we are separated from our source is when we go into that place of illusion. Illusions are a mistake in our thinking, which dissolve when they are put face to face with the truth. And of course, all of you people, Sandy especially, that teaches and knows so much about Course in Miracles, we learn all the time that the illusions that we have just melt away when we put them in check and we align them with the reality of the situation. So he says, when you let go of your fears and find your God nature, which returns you to a balanced state of body and mind, that is when you are in perfect harmony and problem-free. Fear and faith can't live harmoniously in the same space at any time. We've talked about that before. Any more than love and hate or peace and chaos can survive simultaneously. They can never be there both at the same time. So here's a quote that I found that I really like. I'm going to butcher his name, but he's an Indian poet named Rabindranath Tagore. I think that's how you say it. And the quote is, faith is that bird that sings when the dawn is still dark. Faith is that bird that sings when the dawn is still dark. I love that. So we're going to go to fear to faith. And he says we can't stress strongly enough the need and the importance for meditation and for trusting in the unknown. Since faith involves going beyond the senses to make spiritual consciousness the place that we trust, even though it is at a frequency that vibrates so fast that it transcends the capacities of our 5 senses. So Matthew 9:29 says, according to your faith, be it done unto you. Once you draft the dream, the way can be cleared, and the universe responds and works with you to manifest the idea into physical reality. Okay, I'm hearing some people in the background. I'm going to try muting some people.
Yeah, I hear somebody's got music or something going on in the back of theirs.
I'm muting people. I'm muting people.
Cell phone.
I'll unmute you all when we get to the time that we're all allowed to talk. All righty. All righty. Can everybody still hear me okay? Yeah? All right. Good job. Good job. All righty. So Matthew 29, according to your faith, be it done unto you. Once you draft the dream, the way can be cleared, and the universe responds and works with you to manifest the idea into physical reality. So I have a very good friend, I won't mention her name, who is a realtor who specializes in distressed houses for the elderly. So people who are needing to move into a nursing home whose houses are falling apart, but not only falling apart, I hesitate to say it, but have accumulated lots of junk. So maybe possibly hoarders. She specializes in hoarders, actually. So she gets people to come in and clean out all the stuff. She gets roofers to come. She gets people to do the floors. During COVID, she sold a house yesterday to a woman who moved into a nursing home today. That is just beyond belief. She's one of us. She believes in God in beyond all ways and means. She knows with all of her heart that she is doing a good thing. So she's helping these people that are extremely anxious about moving into a nursing home who can't sell their houses because they're so messed up. And so she specializes in getting the houses cleaned up and getting them sold. So literally yesterday, during COVID, she showed the house to many, many people. During COVID, she sold the house, and yesterday, the woman moved into a nursing home. So thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. There is truth to everything that we preach. All righty, so my hero story is someone named Nick Vujicic. Nick Vujicic is a 35-year-old Australian man, one of only 7 known in the world who has no arms and no legs. No arms and no legs. I must have watched, seriously, 15 hours of this man. He talks publicly, he's a public speaker, he is an evangelist, so he does a lot of preaching in churches. And while he does the Jesus thing, so I won't bring in any of his evangelical teachings, he really, really believes that God put him here for a purpose and made him without arms and legs for a purpose. And he's absolutely incredible. He has visited more than 57 countries. He has done over 3,000 talks. He started talking publicly when he was 19. He has talked to audiences over 110,000 people. He has an international nonprofit called Life Without Limbs. He has 300,000 invitations in his email box today to speak. He's written 2 books. The first book was translated into 30 languages and sold 800,000 copies. This man is friggin' unbelievable. So it's not like he's cut off at the waist. It's like he's cut off right at the top of his legs. And he's got one little stumpy leg thing that he pushes himself and uses like a hand. And then he's got a tiny little stumpy leg thing on the other side. So he's got a full body from what would be the top of your thighs up. And so he has this little motorized thing that he moves around in, and then he's got a companion that comes and lifts him on and off the tables where he talks. And so he gives these talks, and he says, so this was a shock to his parents. It didn't show up in any of the sonograms. And when he was born, his mom said, take him away, I don't ever want to see him again. And his dad, who was a pastor, said, oh, no, he's beautiful. He's God's child. He's beautiful the way he is. And so he says it took about 4 months for his mom to come around and say, okay, I don't like it. I'm not happy, but there's a reason I trust in God. And so he has a message that says, I have the choice to be angry at God for what I don't have or to be thankful for what I do have. He says he has a message of love and faith, and he's also very big into anti-bullying. He's because he got bullied incredibly. So he talks about bullying quite a bit in all of his talks. He says, for every disability you have, you are blessed with more than enough abilities to overcome your challenges. he found when he was talking, I started talking when he was 19. When he was about 23, he found in an audience, the parent brought to him an infant who was like him, that also didn't have arms and legs. And like I said, there's only 7 human beings that are known. There may be some that are not known, but on the planet right now, there are only 7 human beings like this. And he found this infant. He brought the infant up to the stage. Obviously, everybody was in tears. His parents were in tears. And so he has been conversing with this infant quite a bit. And then whenever he goes and does talks, they bring disabled people to him backstage that he prays for and that he blesses and all that. And he says, I found that infant. I realized that I could be a miracle to others. I wish many things were different in my life, but knowing I can be a miracle for someone else makes my life worth living, he says. For me, I was looking for hope and happiness. He says, think of the 3 biggest discouragers in your life. So discouragers meaning people that talk down to you or make you feel like you can't have your dreams or make you feel like you can't have what you want. And he says, they are not the biggest discouragers, you are. He says, it only takes 3 seconds for me to say something to you that's going to bring you down, that is going to make you dislike yourself, that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, that's going to make you hurt inside. And he says, but he's talked to thousands and thousands of people that will take that one message that was given to them decades ago and they still remember it. So we remember the messages that were given to us that were painful. And so a lot of his talk is about be very careful about what you say to people because your words matter and that you're responsible for your own well-being and for your own connection with God and for your own ability to be confident and go on with your life. So he says, I am wonderfully and faithfully made. There is a greater purpose for my life. I am here for a reason. He said, we have the heart of people to love others, love yourself, dream big, and never give up. If a man without arms and legs is dreaming big, why can't you? Now, guys, so I Google, I do all this research and I watch, like I said, lots and lots of hours of this guy. The man plays golf. He gets the golf club. He gets it up on his shoulder. The man plays drums. He gets drumsticks attached to his arms and he plays drums. I've seen him playing drums. He swims. He does surfing. He fishes. I've seen him fish. He skydives. I've seen him skydive. When he swims, he jumps. He flipped backwards off of a diving board with no arms and no legs. He's learned how with his shoulders to move himself up into the water. He is now married. He's been married like 12 years. He's got 4 absolutely gorgeous children. His dreams have all come true. As I said, he speaks around the world now. And he's just an incredible human being. He says, God healed my heart and gave me heaven in my heart. God's presence is always there. So it was his acknowledgement that God's presence that was always there. Now, like I said, he's very evangelical. If you listen to any of his church talks, he's all about Jesus and, that it's our job to go make everybody believers of Jesus. I don't particularly believe that piece, and I know you guys may not either. But the fact that he has this unbelievable belief in God and that he was here for a purpose and that even though, despite everything he's got, he's able to move on. So, all right, stay with me for a minute because I know this is a little confusing. I know I talk all the time, and the name of the talk is The Best Is Yet to Come. The reality is that comes by living in the present moment. So the only way to get that is to live fully in the present. Our present creates our future. Every thought we think is like planting a seed. We've talked about that many, many, many times. While we have everything we need right here and right now. So we focus on right here and right now, we've got everything we need. We are living a life of gratitude. That's how you're going to get the life that you want. What we appreciate gets bigger. We talked about that all the time. Every minute you are consciously appreciating. So those of you who know me know that I have a couple of little quirks. One of my little quirks is my first cup of coffee in the morning. Oh my God, nothing makes me happier than my first cup. It's got to be hot. So like after I brew it and everything, I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. It's got to be hot. It's got to be sweet. It's got to be creamy. So when I take that first cup of coffee, man, I feel like I'm in heaven. And what has dawned on me is how many times I say during the day, this must be heaven. This must be heaven. And we talk all the time about how heaven is here, now, live, right now, right this minute. And the more we concentrate on those feelings of being in heaven, the bigger they're going to get. So that's for me, that's my thing. Like, don't take away my coffee. I have 1 cup, but that 1 cup is the best thing in the world. So I have a tiny little girl cat. She might pop up here. She's tiny. Like I've had cats for 30 years. This is the tiniest little girl cat I've ever had. So I sit, you know, like with my legs crossed when I do my meditation. She fits like right in my lap. Like she's not heavy. She's perfect. She's got these tiny little paws. She's just the most adorable. And when I get into meditation and she comes and sits in my lap, I say, this has got to be heaven. This has got to be heaven. And I say many, many times during the day, I'm not a big foodie, as you know. Food and I have had a really contentious relationship. I'm allergic to a lot of foods, and a lot of foods make me really sick. I've learned how to deal with that right now. But sometimes I'll go to a restaurant or I'll just make myself something like by accident at the last minute, and it's so friggin' good. And it's like, oh my God, this must be heaven. I found this fish restaurant. It's like a Hawaiian place. And they make this fish fry sandwich, and it's got all this creamy, like mayonnaise-y, tartar saucy thing on it. And it's like crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside. And I swear to God, I eat it and I'm like, oh, this has got to be heaven. This has got to be heaven. And so a lot of the point of the best is yet to come is acknowledging right here, right now, how much you're enjoying every single thing that you've got. So I had another brilliant new life-changing experience. Those of you who know that I've been going to an office with 400 people. I transcribe phone calls for the deaf. They let me work at home. So this just happened, and it changed my life so much that I don't have to go into the office. I used to work at home. Going to the office, among other things, was dangerous. There were 400 people in this office, and I didn't have my own desk. Every day you come in and you take another spot. And it was scary, but I did it because I needed to do it. And so they sent out a thing saying you could apply to work at home, and I applied. And then I got an email back saying, we've already filled the work at home spots. Thank you so much, but no thank you. And so I was like, okay, God, whatever. And I gave up. Last Friday, I went into work, and I got an IM from my manager saying, come get your computer, you're going home. And I'm like, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! So it's like once you live in gratitude and you live in joy and you turn it over to God and say, okay, I get it. Thy will be done. When I got the email saying you can't work at home, I'm like, okay, I'll wear my mask, I'll wear my gloves, I'll carry my Clorox, it'll be okay. And then it happened anyway. So just be aware, turn it over to God, live in gratitude. It's all going to change everything. So I let go of asking, and sometimes letting go of asking is the answer too. So I really believe I'm the luckiest person in the whole world. There's sometimes that I sit outside on my tiny little balcony and I'm having my cup of coffee and my little baby girl is there and I'm looking at the mountains, and I really say to myself, I've got to be the luckiest person in the world. And I believe that was a result of all of the conscious effort, changing myself from the inside out. So I think because I live in gratitude, I get more gifts daily. Constant faith that life is getting better. I really believe that I'm healthier than I ever was. There was a time when I was 79 pounds and I had a bleeding ulcer, and I was very, very, very sick. And I'm now happy, healthy, energetic, vibrant, loving everything in my life. And I really believe the best is yet to come is because I set it up that way. So again, I want to say, that I'm not an ostrich. We talked at Easter about the fact that you can't be an ostrich. So you're not supposed to put your head in the ground and pretend that the bad stuff isn't happening. You get to acknowledge that the bad stuff, and then you move on. So it's about where you put your focus. It's not about ignoring the truth, and it's not about pretending that the truth isn't there. It's not about living a life of denial. And it's so important that I have you guys understand that it really is about acknowledging what's horrible and saying, okay, God, I'm giving it to you. I'll do my part to make it better as much as I can myself, and then letting it go and changing your focus. So Oprah says that, so you're living in the present, you set the path for the best to come, you live with gratitude, and you do your visualizations. And your visualizations are about saying what it is that you want your life to look like. And Oprah says, what we all want is to be able to live out the truest, highest expression of ourselves. Thoughts are our greatest vehicles to change, power, and success in the world. Oprah says, create the highest, grandest vision for yourself because you become what you believe. So I have a big poster on my wall. I have several, but I have a really big one that says, you are only a tiny fraction of who you are going to be. You are only a tiny fraction of who you are going to be. Change yourself from the inside out. God wants only the best and the highest and the most uplifting for you. Align yourself with the highest and fastest and most dynamic energy of God's love. Love yourself, love your life today, and remember that although we have everything we need right here and right now, the best is absolutely yet to come. And so it is. Thank you so much. I'm going to unmute you guys now so everybody gets to talk. And so the topic is the best is yet to come, but you can, first of all, if anybody just wants to tell us, I'm now unmuting everybody, so everybody should be back in the room. And so anybody who wants to talk, feel free to talk. And anybody who wants to just tell us how they are, if anybody wants to respond to anything. And again, if you want any of the quotes, if you want any of the resources, send me a text, send me an email, and I'll send it to you. Okay.
This is Mimi. I'd like to jump in first so I don't forget what I got in mind, if that's